as advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
"18-year-old Lauren Burk was in her freshman year at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. She was a multi-talented student, a lacrosse-playing sorority member who was majoring in graphic design and dreamed of one day working in marketing. On the 4th of March 2008, Lauren spent the afternoon hanging out with her boyfriend at his dorm and planned on an evening study session at one of the university's libraries with a friend. At around 8 p.m., Lauren walked back to her car, a 2001 Honda Civic, which she had parked nearby. What she didn't know is that someone was watching her, and when she moved to open her car door, he struck. Courtney Lockhart had spent the day scoping out the university's campus, looking for people to rob. It wasn't unusual behavior for him. Between joining the military in 2003, at the age of 19, and his dishonorable discharge in 2006, he'd been a nightmare for other soldiers to deal with, doing drugs, picking fights, going AWOL, and even physically assaulting one of his superiors. After he served half a year in confinement, he was discharged in December 2006, but he never cleaned up his act. Throughout Georgia and Alabama, Courtney was the perpetrator of a series of carjackings and robberies. He usually followed the same method. First, he selected a female victim, one who didn't look like she could fight back. He would watch and wait as she climbed into her vehicle. Then he would quickly approach and aim his pistol at her. While threatening to shoot, he would either order her to hand over her wallet or force her to stand by while he stole her car. When he selected Lauren as his next target, Courtney began by following the same MO that he'd always used. He pointed his gun at her and demanded that she climb into her car. Once Lauren was in the passenger seat, Courtney climbed into the driver's seat, and at this point, Lauren had figured out she was being robbed and tried to give Courtney $200 in cash. In his previous robberies, Courtney had either taken the money or taken the vehicle while the victim watched helplessly. This time, still pointing his gun at Lauren in the passenger seat, he began to drive. With one hand on the steering wheel, he told Lauren to take her clothes off, which she did. Later, Courtney insisted that he hadn't intended on sexually assaulting Lauren. He told her to undress to make her more vulnerable, hoping that if she was naked, she'd be less likely to fight back. For the next half an hour, Lauren was trapped inside her own vehicle. Courtney just kept driving through town, but at some point, he began to confide in Lauren about the struggles he was going through, telling her how he was unemployed and down on his luck. Multiple times, Lauren tried to talk him out of kidnapping her, even offering to put him in touch with someone who could give him a job. But then, Lauren's fear would get the better of her, and she asked Courtney if he was going to shoot her. While Courtney was driving down Alabama Highway 147, Lauren's phone rang. It was her boyfriend. He was concerned because she'd already missed the study session that they had planned on. Courtney made Lauren answer the phone and tell her boyfriend that she'd forgotten that they had plans, before suddenly hanging up. At the time, Lauren's boyfriend said, "I didn't think about it that much. Looking back on the phone call, wow, I could have realized something was up." All of Lauren's attempts to calm down her abductor were failing. She had no idea what Courtney wanted, and he was just getting more and more agitated. Finally, Lauren decided that she had to do something to get herself out of the situation. While Courtney was driving, she quickly swung open the door. Two things happened at once. Lauren threw herself out of the car, and Courtney fired his gun twice. He had kept the weapon trained on his captive the entire time, making it easy to aim. One bullet entered Lauren's body at close range, passing through her left shoulder and both of her lungs. When Lauren managed to stagger upright and wave her arms at passing cars for help, Courtney panicked. He shut the door and kept driving, leaving Lauren on the highway. Lauren's body was covered in abrasions from the road, and she was bleeding heavily from her bullet wound. The only item of clothing that she was wearing were her socks. Several vehicles stopped to help. The adrenaline faded, and Lauren's injuries began to catch up with her. She lay down on the road, struggling to breathe. At about 9 p.m., 1 hour after Lauren was first abducted, first responders arrived at the scene. Lauren was still alive, but she was deteriorating quickly. She clung to life throughout the drive to the hospital, but died due to blood loss shortly after she arrived. While Lauren was fighting for her life, Courtney had been buying gasoline, hoping to hide the evidence of his crime by burning the Honda Civic. After several failed attempts, he managed to get the blaze going, but only after he'd removed Lauren's credit card, iPod, and cash. He left the campus in his own car, throwing Lauren's credit card out the window after using it to fuel up. Later that night, law enforcement received a call about a car fire on the Auburn University campus. They were able to recover a bullet, and after they found out that Lauren's father owned the car, they placed a call to her family. Her father, James Burk, traveled to Auburn to identify his daughter's body. 3 days later, Courtney Lockhart was pulled over after a police officer saw him speeding. The officer, Dale Richards, asked Courtney to get out of the car, but Courtney refused. Instead of complying, he started a 5-person police chase, during which he attempted to dispose of his gun by throwing it out of the car window. Courtney suddenly screeched his car to a halt and opened the door, causing one of the officers, who was on a motorbike, to crash into the door. Then Courtney tried to flee on foot, but he was quickly apprehended. A search of his vehicle revealed Lauren Burk's cell phone and iPod, as well as .38 caliber shell casings. Courtney Lockhart might have been a hardened criminal, but he wasn't particularly smart. Shortly after he was arrested, he confessed to his involvement in Lauren's murder, as well as several other robberies. In November 2010, Courtney's trial began. He was facing charges for murdering during the commission of a kidnapping, murder during the commission of an attempted rape, and murder during the commission of a robbery. And his defense team were heavily leaning on claims that Courtney suffered from mental illness after his time in the military, making him not guilty by reason of insanity. The prosecution was barred from mentioning Courtney's other criminal history, including his dishonorable discharge. The jury spent 2 days deliberating and finally reached their conclusion. Although they agreed that Courtney was guilty of kidnapping, robbing, and murdering Lauren, they believed he was not guilty of sexually assaulting her. They recommended that Courtney be sentenced to life behind bars instead of a death sentence. But Judge Walker felt otherwise. The judge overturned the jury's decision and sentenced Courtney Lockhart to death. The judge had several reasons for his decision. First, he felt as if the jury would have made a different choice if they'd known more information about Courtney, particularly the fact that he had a criminal history and the way he'd behaved when he was in the military. Judge Walker also argued that the way Courtney had kidnapped Lauren meant that a death sentence was appropriate. Quote, "Lauren alone, unarmed, and she was chosen by Courtney Lockhart at random," the judge said. "The kidnapping is even more egregious because she was taken from a college campus, a place where students should feel safe, and forced into her own car." Lauren's parents were in favor of their daughter's killer being sentenced to death, and despite Courtney making multiple appeals, his conviction has been upheld. Lauren's family attended every hearing, determined to make sure that their family got justice. Quote, "We maintain our desire for the death penalty," Lauren's father said at one of Courtney's hearings. "Lauren did get the death penalty without a warning. He didn't give Lauren a second chance," Lauren's mother said. "He shouldn't get a second chance either." That is 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, the host, and I really appreciate you listening today, especially today because you could have tuned away at any point. My voice is, I thought a couple of times during that I was going to lose my voice completely. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it's allergies, but my voice is trying to disappear on me. But thanks for sticking with me on this episode. If you're brand new to 10-Minute Murder, first of all, I don't normally sound like this. Second, welcome. I'm glad that you're here, despite how I sound. Make sure you go back and listen to more of the back episodes. There are 350 something of them. So go and listen to those. Also subscribe now so that you can more easily catch up on the back episodes. Connect with me on social media to see the pictures of what we talk about here in the podcast. It's never gross and graphic stuff though. And if you like this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, any place that you listen that it's possible to leave a rating and review. I really do appreciate that. And hey, Joe, aside from your voice problems, how's your day been? Well, thank you for asking. I'd love to tell you all about it. I was having a conversation with someone, and I said the word pajamas. And then a moment later, I said pajamas. After that, I tuned out everything they said because I kept trying to decide in my head, do you say it pajamas or do you say it pajamas? So from then on that topic of conversation, I just said PJs. And now I can't stop questioning myself. It's been hours since that conversation, and I still don't know. Is it pajamas or pajamas? I don't even know. So I've got that mental situation going on. And I know what you're about to do. And I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to try to remotely diagnose me with whatever thing. Don't do it. Whatever's wrong with me is none of my business. All right, that's your episode for today. I'm headed to the kitchen to pour myself something warm with honey in it. I think that's what you're supposed to do when you can't talk. I'm going to do that while you can catch up on back episodes or go on about your day or go to sleep, whatever it is that you are planning to do. I hope you do it well. Thank you for listening to 10 Minute Murder.